In this talk, I'm going to explore questions, and specifically the questions that we carry with us. Um, One really cool thing about our brains is our brains can't resist a good question. Um, if you ask your brain just about any question, it will start to generate answers for you. And at times, it can be as if we carry questions with us, different questions, and we may carry certain questions with us out of habit, right, or out of conditioning, out of social conditioning, uh, conditioning from our family. So um, if you, I'll ask two questions and just notice where it takes you. So if if you're to ask yourself the question, why does this always happen to me? And just notice what your mind does with that question. Why does this always happen to me? And then you can let that go. And if you ask the question, I wonder what's possible here. Or you could ask it, that's more of a statement, you could ask it, what's possible here? And so each of these questions, bring us in a different direction. And um, I'll offer several examples as I continue here. And I would say one of the main takeaways is to begin to raise your awareness about what type of questions you ask on a regular basis. Um, and, a moment ago, we sort of noticed how each of those questions had a different impact. So the first step is notice which questions you're asking and notice the impact, like where does it send your attention? Because our questions direct our thinking in a particular direction. And like I said, our brains um, can't resist a good question. So if you ask yourself the question, uh, how am I going to do this wonderfully? Your brain will start to generate answers to that question. It's almost as if it can't resist that. So, what are different questions that people ask themselves? Certainly some people ask, why does this always happen to me? It's an interesting question. First of all, what's this? And it sort of implies that this is something unfortunate. That could be a great question if every time something really lucky and wonderful happens, if you ask, like, why does this always happen to me? The other thing that's interesting about that question is it's asking why. It's assuming that there's a why, there's a reason that makes it this way, that this particular thing always happens to you. And that it's saying that this happens all the time. Um, and it kind of implies that it's you as opposed to other people. Um, then there are other types of questions like, how can I best show up for this? Or like I said earlier, what's possible here? What could I create? What would I love to have happen right now? Or what would I love to create? What can I learn? What can I notice here that I haven't noticed yet? What am I not noticing yet? I wonder how I'm going to enjoy this even more. So these are all different questions, and I'm asking them a little bit slowly just so that you can sort of settle in and try each one on, like you're tasting a food. Take the question, sit with it for a few moments, and just notice where it leads your attention. So um, with this idea that questions direct our attention, you can begin to ask yourself, where would I like my attention directed And how can I construct questions that will lead me in that particular direction? You know, if you have a goal of becoming a great leader, you can think of questions that will help you in that journey. You could ask, what can I learn about leadership in any moment? What are my opportunities to lead here? Or if you want to learn, you can ask questions about learning. What do I want to learn? What will learning this lead to next? When am I going to achieve this? I like that, a question like that. When am I going to achieve this? At least it presupposes that I'm going to achieve this. What do I want to explore next? So I encourage you to do a couple things. One is just bring a little bit of your awareness to the types of questions that you're asking yourself. You can also notice, I've said this in other videos, you can notice who's asking. Is it your internal voice, or have you internalized somebody else's internal voice? If it's someone else's and they ask you a disempowering question, you might just reply, well, why do you ask? So raise your awareness to the questions. I would write a few down and then wordsmith them. If they're not leading you in a direction that's powerful and fulfilling for you and satisfying, take a moment and really curate some great questions that can really set you up and aim your awareness in a direction that you'd like to go. Questions are just like fuel to our awareness and to our energy. If I'm just walking around kind of in a stupor and I pick up a question of what can I notice here, all of a sudden it directs my awareness out in a certain way, and it really starts to wake me up. So it's worth taking the time to notice which questions you already have, wordsmith them, adjust them, or replace them with questions that are perhaps more powerful and fulfilling for you. So I encourage you to give that a shot and let me know what you think.